Good evening, everybody. It's Brendan Baylod. I'm the president of the Wisconsin Underwater Archeology Association and the administrator of the Great Lakes Shipwreck Research Group. Welcome this evening to our podcast. This is the first of a number of podcasts that I'll be doing with presenters at this year's Ghost Ships Festival. As many of you know, we've decided to kick the old event off again as a WUAA event. WUAA is a 501c3. This is a nonprofit event, and we have a lot of excellent guests and sponsors that have agreed to help us to support the Wisconsin Underwater Archeology Association this year. So going kind of presenter by presenter through the day's schedule, and we're going to have these little 10-minute, 15-minute get to know the presenter sessions, kind of as publicity for Ghost Ships. So I'm really pleased this evening to have our first presenter who's occupying the 10 a.m. slot at the Ghost Ships Festival. It's Kendra Kennedy from the Wisconsin Historical Society's Maritime Archeology program. And Kendra is, no surprise, a maritime archaeologist, a real one, not one of us avocationalists, but somebody who went to school for it and does it for a living. So welcome, Kendra.
Thank you, Brendan. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So just a little bit of background, I guess, to jump into things, Kendra. Let me go ahead and bury us while we start the interview and get it going. All right. Can you still hear me, Kendra?
I can.
Excellent. All right. Kendra, we're really excited to have you at the Ghost Ships Festival. I don't think a lot of people may not know you here because even though you're new to Wisconsin, you're not new to Great Lakes Maritime Archaeology. Kendra, I think you just started here. How long has it been now? A year?
No, I actually just started about 6 months. I started in August of last year.
Excellent. Well, you've already made some excellent contributions. So, usual question I ask people, how, a lot of people know, people who I suppose work in the maritime trades, but not too many people, are get into underwater archaeology as a profession. What made you want to do that, and how'd you get into it that way?
Sure. So, although I am new to the Wisconsin Historical Society, I'm not new to Wisconsin. I'm originally from southeastern Wisconsin, but it has been some time since I have worked in the state. I got into archaeology in general from a very young age. I think that I can trace it all the way back to my father, who is just an avid avocational historian, but just very interested in history. Reading my brother and I stories from Atlas of Ancient Times. Um, Telling us about Egyptology, about Mayan archaeology, about all these amazing civilizations that existed. And I think that really just stoked my interest in archaeology and the study of past lives and study of history. Um, and so I studied archaeology when I was an undergraduate at the University of Notre Dame, and then decided I really wanted to continue on. I had become certified as a scuba diver while at Notre Dame and loved it. Just real, even though my first experience was diving in almost zero visibility in one of the lakes in Indiana at Notre Dame. And so when I looked at doing a graduate program in archaeology, the picture you can see here is myself and two other underwater archaeologists, Cisco Williams and Wayne Abramson, who coincidentally is also a Wisconsin resident formerly, doing work at the University of West Florida in Pensacola. And that's where I really got my start. I got my graduate degree from UWF, working in Pensacola Bay in the Gulf of Mexico. And you can see here an 1896 bird's eye view of Pensacola. You can just see the maritime activity was significant. And so I finished my thesis there on the maritime cultural landscape of the Pensacola waterfront, changes that took place on the waterfront from 1740 to 1940. So that's where I started out in underwater archaeology.
Very cool. So, you have obviously been doing this for quite a while, it sounds like, and not just on the lakes, but in many places. Tell us about some of your favorite projects that you've done over the years.
Sure. So one of the I'd say kind of a showstopper. I was very fortunate in Pensacola to work on a 1559 Spanish shipwreck in Pensacola Bay from the Tristan de Luna expedition. They're called the one we worked on is called Emmanuel Point 2, and there was an Emmanuel Point 1, simply named off the spit of land near which they wrecked. So working on a 1559 Spanish shipwreck in the United States is pretty exciting. I also was able to work on an 1812 possible gunboat, War of 1812 gunboat in the Patuxent River in Maryland with Susan Langley, state underwater archaeologist of Maryland, Susan Langley, as well as the Naval History and Heritage Command folks. That was pretty fantastic. Um, the photo that you likely can see is of me working with the Maritime Archaeological Survey team in Ohio. I worked as a compliance reviewer for the State Historic Preservation Office in Ohio a few years before coming here to Wisconsin's SHPO. And so I was fortunate to work with MAST, the Maritime Archaeological Survey team, while I was in Ohio. And this is some work that we were doing on the Admiral shipwreck in Lake Erie.
Well, my old friend Carrie Soden, she's been
Exactly.
on our show
Thank you for
before.
mentioning her. I would have been amiss not to mention Carrie.
Yeah, she's really made a lot of contributions over there to Ohio underwater archaeology. So, tell us about some of the other Great Lakes things that you've done. Maybe around this area.
Sure. So after I was at the Ohio SHPO, I actually moved to Illinois and I worked at Argonne National Lab. Um, I was Although I did a small selection of underwater archaeology projects while there, either managing or working on them myself, um, most of what I did was assisting federal agencies with a variety of archaeological projects, mostly land based. And so I really didn't want to, lose my skills and I love diving. So I connected myself with the Underwater Archaeological Society of Chicago, and this is actually a wreck. This photos by Scott Reimer, who's currently the president of the UASC, of a wreck called Maya's Tug that we dove in Lake Michigan off of Chicago. But I have been fortunate to work with just some amazing folks at the UASC while I was at Argonne National Lab, and I continue to work with them still. So to really try to promote and preserve shipwrecks in Chicago's waters of Lake Michigan.
Very cool. Scott is also on our board,
Oh,
one of
that's
our
right. Yes.
trustees of the WUAA. So we enjoy working with him as well. And tell me about this one here, kneeling next to this keel and ribs.
Sure, sure. This is the Sardinia shipwreck. Now this one is in Wisconsin. This is near Gills Rock off of Door County, in Hedgehog Bay. Um, and this wreck I was able to work on this summer with the Wisconsin Historical Society, even though I was still not yet employed at the Wisconsin Historical Society. My start date hadn't taken place yet because I was finishing up some work at Argonne National Lab. But this was work that we did in May. Um, in Hedgehog Bay, just some while frigid, certainly not the same as Florida diving. It was some just beautiful visibility. And the Sardinia and the Maria are two wrecks that have just been really smashed up into the shoreline of Hedgehog Harbor. Um, and there's also pier remnants that come off of the land there. So just a really interesting, as I mentioned before, I'm really interested in maritime cultural landscapes and that connection between land and sea. So this is a site that really fascinated me because of that connection, and then just diving in water like this in the Great Lakes is just really beautiful. You may be freezing, but you can still really appreciate the clarity of the water at a site like this.
Well, and thanks to those quagga mussels, I suppose, it's a double-edged sword, but at the same time, when we used to dive these, it was even in shallow water, sometimes a braille dive. Now, look at that, eh? So, your talk is about the National Register, and it's interesting to me just because, we have so many wonderful wrecks here in Wisconsin, but all the Great Lakes states, in particular, Michigan, Ohio, some other states have, more than us. And yet we lead the nation in the number of wrecks on the National Register of Historic Places. In fact, I think if you add up all the other states combined, we have more than all the other states combined. That's unusual. I'm wondering, why is that? Why does Wisconsin have so many wrecks on the NRHP?
Sure, and it's a really unique story, and I definitely encourage you to attend the Ghost Ships Festival to learn more. My presentation will specifically be on the National Register of Historic Places, the National Register for short, um, and why the process of nominating a site to the National Register as it relates to shipwrecks, and why Wisconsin has so many. And it really comes down to legal cases that have really shaped the way Wisconsin chose to protect shipwreck sites and other submerged archaeological sites in Lake Michigan and Lake Superior in Wisconsin's waters. Um, there hasn't just been that same legal framework for it. All does tie into the Abandoned Shipwreck Act of 1987, um, which applies to, of course, all United States shipwrecks in federal waters that belong to the states, or state waters, sorry, that manage these wrecks. But there has been, like I said, specific legal cases, legal precedent in Wisconsin and in nearby Illinois that have, again, shaped the way Wisconsin um, addresses its shipwreck sites and chooses to nominate sites to the National Register. So they're afforded just that additional legal protection from that listing on the National Register, or um, determination that they're eligible for listing on the National Register.
Gotcha. So, you know, in the past, when a diver has gotten caught with a porthole or with what have you, anything a safe off the wreck, and they say, well, I don't want to go to jail, so they try to sue for an admiralty case. They try to get ownership of the wreck,
Right.
and from what I understand, if the wreck is on the National Register, that's off the table, right? They are not going to be able to make an admiralty claim.
Right, exactly. That really changes things. There are the Abandoned Shipwreck Act specifies that shipwrecks that are embedded in submerged lands of a state, embedded also in coralline structure, but that isn't an issue in the Great Lakes. But shipwrecks that are embedded in submerged lands of a state, or that are listed on the National Register or determined eligible for listing on the National Register. You can make any lawyer worth his or her salt can make an argument about what submerged or embedded in submerged lands means, right? That there's an element of gray to that definition, but that's not this case for whether a shipwreck is listed on the National Register, it is or it isn't, or has been determined eligible for the National Register. It has or it hasn't been. So it just strengthens a case to be made if a shipwreck is listed in the National Register. So Wisconsin has chosen this program, the State Historic Preservation Office has chosen to pursue that listing for shipwrecks, to remove that gray area, to make it very, very clear um, that Wisconsin's shipwrecks are protected under the Abandoned Shipwreck Act.
It's something I'm really glad that we're doing. I mean, when it's an odd thing that two of my close personal friends are probably the reason for this, Paul Ehorn and Harry Zeich.
Right.
And Harry, rest his soul, I think was a pirate till the end. But a lot of the old guys have come around and they understand now that they they the dubious wisdom of removing things from wrecks. So
Right.
a lot of these guys have reconsidered their ways, I guess we'd like to think. In any event, I don't want to give away your whole talk, so I'll leave it there. But excellent explanations, Kendra, and things that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. About why Wisconsin has so many wrecks on the National Register and what that history is. But there's going to be a lot more to Kendra's talk than exploring that history. A lot about how things are put on the National Register, and I'm excited about it. Actually, on the 23rd of February, Bob, Jake, and I are going to be in attendance in person when the schooner Trinidad is considered for membership in the National Register. So very excited about that. All right. I'm going to move things along. We're going to wrap things up a little bit. Kendra, thanks again so much for agreeing to be here. Please, everybody, attend Kendra's talk at the Ghost Ships Festival. If you don't have your tickets now, please get them. We now have the website up with the ability to pre-order to pre-register for the festival. It's $20 if you register in advance. It's $25 at the door. So save yourself some money and register up front. Also, if you want to get a booth, the booths are really filling fast. The booths are 3/4 gone. If you want to get a booth, if you're a dive charter, dive club, dive anything, if you're a maritime historian, a marine artist, anything, come on to our website. You can pay for your booth online. They're $150 a pop. They include electricity and 2 free tickets to the event. Also, if you want to sponsor us, you get your logo in the program flyer and on our website for a calendar year. You can also do that and pay for it on our website. So, or reach out to me personally through the website. So again, we look forward to seeing you at the festival. Next week, we have another one of these, and it's going to be Caitlin Zant, the underwater archaeologist from the Wisconsin Shipwreck Coast National Marine Sanctuary. So I believe that's going to be next Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll post a reminder about it. So thanks again, Kendra, for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was great.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. Good night, everybody.